Hello guys, and welcome back to the sim here in Brunei. Now I know it's been a little while since the last throttle quadrant here that was created on YouTube, but I have been extremely busy with work and designing other stuff in the background. If I give you a quick sneaky peek of some other videos that are coming up, here you can see the screens that wrap around the front of the cockpit, and down here we've got the two computers that run the system at the front end. Inside the cockpit, I've pulled down the forward overhead panel, and that's so I can carry out some modifications to the starter switches. They're already out on the website, and if you haven't grabbed them yet, feel free to re-download them. As there's no change in the throttle levers or the flaps lever, I'm going to create them now, and I'll get back to you once they're done. This is the main body that replaces the Saitek throttle unit. And first up, I want to attach the flaps detent. I've printed it in light grey. I think what would really add to the aesthetics is if we got some metallic grey PLA. However, it hasn't arrived yet, so it's going to be light grey. And that will simply just slot into position, and hopefully, if I've done my job right on the CAD, these should line up perfectly. That's the flaps detent bracket fitted. Next up, I want to fit the bell cutout switch, which is going to fit into this nice big hole here. But first of all, let's attach some wires. Flaps detent brackets fitted. Bell horn cutout switch is now fitted. We've got the wires coming from the inside. Now it's time to move on to the flaps mounting bracket, which is here, and hopefully you can see that I've actually labelled it inside. We've got a high quality pot, and they should just slide together like so. Flip it over and insert the nut. Tighten up. If you wonder what I'm doing, I'm just colour coding the cables. Red for positive, black for negative, and the output being orange. So I just need to put the flaps bracket into the case, through the flaps handle. I think that's got it. Feels good. And just have to install some screws. With the flaps bracket installed, next up are the throttle bracket assemblies, number 1 and number 2. I've got the number 1 here in front of me, and you can see this is the prototype that I used to build the rest, and it works quite well. Here's the throttle stem. It's labelled number 1. We've got the aluminium bar that attaches into it, and hopefully using aluminium bar and a rather large rubbing head here will really add to the rigidity of the unit. So here in orange we have the brake, the throttle brake, and the whole idea of that is if I slacken it off, here's the maintenance hole at the side. You can already see that the throttle is now free to do what it wants, and to stop that from happening when we use the sim, we can adjust the tension on the brake lever, and that is adding a huge amount of friction. I mean, it can support the metal bar outright. So we need to create them now. To To create these friction brakes, all I'm going to do is apply hot glue to the surface. So the first thing to fit is the friction brake tension screw, and we're just going to slide that into position and hopefully screw that into the block. That's the screw installed. Again, time for a high quality pot, and the throttle stem just pushes onto the pot now, like so. I'm going to make a quick adjustment on this one because I can feel the pot bottoming out, so I'm just going to twist it in there, and you can see now it doesn't get restricted either way. Time to install our friction brake. Hopefully it'll fit in there. Flip her over and put an M4 screw in. That's the number 2 throttle bracket nearly finished. Just got to install the cover, and that should help really with the rigidity of the throttle unit itself. Now it's time to fit the throttle bases and the throttle units. You need to feed the wire in from the number 2 throttle assembly into the gap where the throttle slides. They should help tidy it up. So that's a pretty perfect fit. I'm going to insert the aluminium bar, which is going to go in there. And the handle should go on like so. Now that that's in position, all we've got to do is insert the screws. Now we have to repeat for the number 1 throttle. So once again, throttle handle through the slot, like so. Bring that a bit closer. I think that's all the wires threaded through the holes. Now we've got to get this bracket into position. Let's get the handle on. Let's see if we can get some screws in. There we have our flaps lever and 2 throttle levers all installed, ready to go. Lots of wiring. We'll come back to that in a bit. Now we've got to do the speed brake. I'll put that behind me, and that's going to be very similar. So we've got our mounting bracket. First thing we need to do is install the friction brake screw. I'm going to put the speed brake bracket to one side. I'm going to take our last pot, insert it into the boss in the middle, put the nut on. We've now got our speed brake stem, and that should slide onto the pot. Oh, a nice tight fit. Our speed brake stem is fitted, and now we're going to fit the speed brake bracket. It just goes over the top like so, and we're going to put a couple of 4mm screws in. So now we need to fit the speed brake, and it basically just slides into the hole, and we insert a screw from the top and hopefully screw it in. Okay, so that's very floppy. A quick friction adjustment. There we go. Let's move on to the parking brake. Now this is exactly the same as in the last version of the throttle assembly. There is absolutely no change. And that should slot into there. And then, oh, it does. Wow. Now we get to bring in the unit that we completed earlier. And if all goes well, all we have to do is feed the wires through the maintenance hole at the bottom. and they should fit together perfectly. So hopefully that's going to sit in there like that. It's going to push together pretty much like that. Now these decals haven't turned out too well really. I mean, they'll do for the job, but I think probably using a paper and ink to print the decal itself and then to place it onto the unit would be a better option. I'll try that a bit later on. For the time being, these should just fit in position. With the rear section complete, now let's concentrate on building the front section and the right section. So just like in the last version, this is the parking brake light. So we're going to feed those wires into the brake light unit. Just going to apply a bit of super glue to the edge. Push the light into position. So what we've got next, instead of using tiny little M3 8mm screws to attach all these sections together, we're going to use 6mm threaded rod. Now I've not tried this yet, so I'm not sure if it's going to work, but hopefully it will. It does on cam, and we've got one piece that's 196mm in long and 3 pieces at 170mm long. We've got our threaded bar installed. We have to feed our wires now through the maintenance hole for the braking light, and then insert the 3 threaded bars into the parking brake light. I've wired up my micro switches for the cut-off levers. Hopefully now we can install one of each in the unit. Feels really good. Hopefully that's all the wiring connected through to the left hand side. That just leaves us to put the end cap on. It was a late finish last night. I did the wiring to the Leo Bodner card here. I didn't film it because that was also in the previous video. And I also learned from all the comments in the last throttle unit, people don't like using the Leo Bodner card because shipping outside the UK is just as expensive as purchasing the card itself. Now, if we had a postal system here that actually worked, I would already have ordered the Arduino Leonardo cards, which are about £5 each, or the Arduino Micro Pro cards, which are apparently exactly the same as this. You just need to upload the sketch that replicates the joystick. They are £5 each, which makes creating this unit here without the Saitek throttle unit exceptionally cheap. Obviously, you're going to have to fork out for the PLA. And I'm still gutted about having 2 colours of grey. That's breaking my heart. But again, I just cannot get PLA because the post has not arrived. Let me finish wiring this up. All I've got to do is connect the USB cable up, tidy this board away in the side, and then fit the end panel. Let's do that now. So as I mentioned before, I really like the idea of everything being self-contained in the unit, and that all we've got is a single USB cord coming out. So I feed that through the rear hole and plug that in, and then it really is just a single USB. Now that is a slight lie, because you probably can see that I've got these 2 wires here for the parking brake light, and that's because the Leonardo card doesn't do LED outputs. However, I have a sneaky suspicion that if we do get the Arduino Micro Pro, that not only can you create that as a joystick card, but you'd also be able to add LEDs to it, just like any other Arduino card. So we've got one USB cable, and unfortunately I've got the ground and the 5-volt line to the parking brake light, which is going to have to go to an Arduino. Let's get the cover fitted and finish this project off. And there we have my version 3 throttle unit for the 737 that is solely created without any major other components. So we've got rid of the Saitek unit. It's all just pots and a Leo Bodner card or an Arduino Micro Pro. And all the levers feel absolutely really good. I mean, they've got a bit of feel to them, a bit of weight. In fact, you can actually see the whole body moving. So the body will have to be fixed at some point. And I've got one more mod that won't be in this video, but will be coming to this unit slightly later. Even with the Leo Bodner and the Arduino Micro Pro cards, you've got enough for 8 axes. And we're only using 6 axes at the moment. So I am going to add a 10-turn 10k ohm pot to the left and right for manual trim wheels. That'll just be an add-on where you print the end caps again. They'll have the mounting hole for the pots to be fitted, and you'll just attach the 3D printed wheel to the unit. Let's head inside, see if I've wired it up correctly and everything is working. Here we are, guys, we're back inside. I'm sat at the computer. The throttle is to the left of me here, ready for filming. But in that time, the Arduino Micro has arrived. There it is. It is a tiny bit of kit. It's about the size of the end of my finger. And I spent the last couple of nights playing with this. What an amazing bit of kit for £3 to £4, €3 to €4 even. It does exactly the same as the Leo Bodner card. That costs £25 alone without shipping, and people have been telling me it's about £25 for shipping as well. So this makes this exceptionally cheap. All you do is you upload a sketch, a joystick sketch, and this card then emulates a joystick card. So you plug your axes and you plug your buttons in, and it does the job. What a fantastic bit of kit. Now let's move on and check the throttle assembly and see how we've done. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the search bar and type in USB game controller. It's already come up because I use it so often. Here we go. It's the only interface I've got plugged in onto my main computer here. I'm going to hit properties, and you can see that we've got the 6 axes in front of us and the 32 buttons. So let's run through the buttons first and make sure they all work. So we've got the AT disengage, that's going to be button 12. We've got the auto takeoffs and go arounds, that works fine. We've got the parking brake, that's button 8. The idle cutoffs, they work fine. Stab trims, 4 and 5. Let's do the parking brake light. You can see that lights up really well. And then we've got the axes. So we've got the speed brake, that works really well. Throttle 1, throttle 2, and then the thrust reversers. That's really good. I can also feel the indents. There we go. Set them up, and then max throttles pulling through. You may have noticed already that I actually have to hold the base of the unit and then move the throttles because they are very rigid and actually feel quite solid. The same as the speed brake, feels absolutely solid. I've forgotten the horn cutout button. That's button 10 and it works without a problem. And here we have version 3 737 throttle. This is 10 times better than the last version. We've got rid of the Saitek unit. Everything feels a lot more firm. It needs a positive action to move all the levers now. The only thing that lets it down is the 2 different colours. That was unavoidable at the time. You don't need to do that, just make sure you've got enough PLA. Now that this one's finished, behind this big wall here is the 737 Max throttle assembly. That's already looking pretty cool, but it's not built and it's not tested. The 757, the 767 throttles are also behind there, and the prototyping of the actual motorised unit, full size, is also behind there. That's all coming up. That's why these videos are so slow. It's because there's so much happening. Also, on top of that, if you've seen on social media, I've also done the 737 tiller mechanism and tiller arm. To my left, where the big sim is, the monitors are installed. Last night saw the installation of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Now, even though it's not compatible with the hardware installed in the sim, the visuals and the controls still are fully compatible, and it looks absolutely fantastic. For the time being, guys, until the next episode, I'll catch you later. Sim out.